Lady, listen, you can change oil and patch tires if you want, but don't even dream about working on real tactical vehicles. The laughter echoed through the garage as the young woman slowly bent down, carefully wiping her oil-stained hands on her faded mechanic's coveralls. But exactly 12 hours later, when the elite Special Forces team completely failed their mission in Zone X, 6 menacing black military SUVs suddenly surrounded her small roadside garage. A stern officer stepped out and asked, "Are you Echo 6? Meet Ellie Grayson, 32 years old. Single owner and operator of a small automotive repair shop located in the desolate town of Red Valley. Total population under 2,000 souls. Ellie graduated summa cum laude with a degree in aerospace engineering from a prestigious university. Then she served in the military with distinction before leaving after a deeply personal and traumatic incident. She used her savings to open this humble garage, specializing in pickup trucks, old Jeeps, farming equipment, and occasionally, abandoned military generators that veterans bring in. Every single morning, Ellie wakes up at exactly 5 a.m. She unlocks the shop doors, makes herself strong black coffee, plays classic country music on an old radio, and methodically starts her daily work. What nobody in this sleepy town knows is that she once held Level 4 military technical clearance, the kind reserved for handling classified weapon systems. The local townspeople genuinely like her. She's honest, fair with her prices, and never tries to oversell unnecessary repairs. But the cocky young delivery guys who pass through town often mock her behind her back as a wet behind-the-ears mechanic who couldn't possibly understand heavy machinery or complex mechanical systems. One particularly memorable day, Ellie helped a grizzled old veteran start up his broken-down Humvee that had been sitting dead in his driveway for months. A smart-ass bystander joked loudly, "Hey, lady, you following the owner's manual for that military beast?" Ellie just smiled softly and said nothing. Then she calmly reached under the hood and adjusted the auxiliary fuel valve by exactly 1/8 of a turn. No more, no less. The massive engine immediately roared to life with a thunderous sound that shook the ground. The veteran stared at her in complete amazement. "How did you know to do that?" "Lucky guess," she replied quietly. "Hidden detail that nobody sees. She keeps an old military-grade laptop computer locked away in her private break room. It's encrypted with advanced fingerprint access technology. She only opens it late at night when the town is asleep. The screen displays complex 3D models of bomb disposal systems, detailed satellite reconnaissance maps, and sophisticated tactical algorithms that would make Pentagon analysts jealous. The simple locals see nothing more than a friendly small-town mechanic who fixes their trucks and charges reasonable prices. They have absolutely no idea they're looking at one of the most highly skilled tactical engineers the United States military ever trained and deployed in active combat zones. But Ellie genuinely prefers it this way. She's completely done with proving herself to anyone who doesn't matter. One unusually quiet Tuesday afternoon, Ellie received an unexpected phone call to tow a mysteriously broken-down black SUV from the remote forest edge about 15 miles outside town. The caller's voice sounded nervous and wouldn't give many details about what happened to the vehicle. When she arrived at the location and began her standard mechanical examination, she immediately noticed something that made her blood run cold. The shock absorbers had a very specific and unusual weld mark, a signature she recognized instantly. This particular welding pattern was only found on Shadow Recon armored vehicles, the kind used by deep-cover special operations units. As she crawled under the chassis to attach her tow chains, she discovered something even more disturbing. A sophisticated thermal sensor device had been carefully hidden and hardwired into the vehicle's electrical system. Attached to the sensor was a small bolt with precise military markings etched into the metal. E6 CXT Shadow Grid. Her hands trembled slightly as she stared at those letters and numbers. E6, Echo 6. Her old military call sign that she thought was buried forever. She didn't tell anyone about her discovery. Not the nervous caller who paid her in cash. Not the sheriff who asked casual questions about unusual vehicles. She simply brought the mysterious bolt home to her garage and locked it securely in a small fireproof safe hidden under the workshop floor. That night, after ensuring all her windows were covered and her doors were locked, she powered up her encrypted laptop for the first time in over 6 months. With shaking fingers, she entered the complex code sequence from the bolt into her military encryption system. After several tense seconds, the screen flickered and displayed a chilling message. Echo 6. Emergency disarm protocol has been activated. Dagger Zone is currently under active interdiction status. Immediate tactical response required. Ellie immediately shut down the computer, removed the solid-state drive, and methodically burned all her handwritten notes in the metal trash can behind her garage. The acrid smoke drifted up into the dark night sky as she watched 6 years of carefully constructed civilian identity potentially crumble to ash. She knew exactly who had sent that coded signal. The same people who had promised her that Echo 6 was officially dead and buried. The same people who had sworn that her military past would never follow her to this quiet little town where she'd finally found some measure of peace. 6 years ago, she had been Staff Sergeant Ellie Grayson, a highly specialized tactical disarmament technician serving with the legendary Shadow Unit 13. During one catastrophically failed mission in a classified location, 5 of her closest friends and teammates died horrible deaths because someone in command had given them fatally incorrect intelligence. Ellie had barely survived that nightmare. The guilt and trauma had nearly destroyed her mentally. She'd officially left the military with full honors, changed her name slightly, and literally disappeared from all military databases. She'd driven across 3 states with everything she owned packed in the back of a pickup truck, looking for a place where nobody would ask questions about her past. She thought she had successfully buried Echo 6 forever in the quiet anonymity of small-town life. But apparently, Echo 6 wasn't finished with her yet, and judging by that ominous message, people were going to die if she didn't answer the call. The next morning would bring visitors she had prayed she would never see again, the kind of dangerous visitors who don't bother to knock politely on your door. At exactly 7:30 the next morning, 6 imposing black SUVs with government license plates rolled silently up to her garage in perfect military formation. No sirens, no advance warning, no escape routes left open. A tall, stern-faced man in his 40s stepped out of the lead vehicle, wearing full tactical body armor and flashing official Special Forces credentials. Echo 6, your unique disarm codes were detected at the explosion site in the neighboring state yesterday. Multiple civilians are dead. We need your expertise immediately. This is not a request. Ellie remained completely silent for a long moment, studying the faces of the armed men surrounding her property. She slowly wiped her hands clean on a shop rag, deliberately closed and locked her garage door, then led the entire team into her small private break room without saying a single word. On the wall hung a faded black and white photograph that she hadn't looked at in months. Shadow Unit 13 in full combat gear. 6 young, confident faces smiling at the camera before their final mission. She was the only person in that photograph who was still breathing. The team leader noticed her staring at the photo. We know what happened to your unit, Sergeant Grayson. We know why you left. And we know you've been living under a modified identity for 6 years. They showed her classified video footage on a military-grade tablet. A sophisticated drone had crashed at a high-security military checkpoint near the Canadian border. The explosive device attached to the drone had partially detonated, but somehow failed to achieve full destruction. If it had worked properly, it would have killed dozens of military personnel and civilian contractors. Ellie studied the footage carefully, then examined close-up photographs of the unexploded device. After 30 seconds of intense concentration, she looked up and said with absolute certainty, "This is a pulse loop bomb with a delayed secondary trigger. The exact type I used to design for classified operations, and the exact type I used to disarm in combat situations. Whoever built this studied my old technical manuals very carefully." The team leader's expression grew even more serious. "We have reason to believe there are 3 more identical devices planted at critical infrastructure targets. Our best bomb disposal experts have been working for 18 hours and can't figure out how to safely disarm them without triggering the secondary explosions." They transported her in an armored convoy to a regional power grid substation in the suburbs where sophisticated electronic mining equipment was suspected to be hidden. The entire area had been evacuated for a 2-mile radius. Ellie surveyed the scene with the practiced eye of a combat veteran. Then she opened her old military toolkit and retrieved a specialized homemade mechanical thermal sensor pen that she had designed years ago. Unlike standard electronic detection equipment, her device required no electrical power and couldn't accidentally trigger booby traps. Working with surgical precision, she methodically probed 4 critical circuit junction points throughout the facility. Her movements were calm, confident, and absolutely precise. Every cut, every disconnection, every bypass was executed with the skill of someone who had performed these exact procedures dozens of times under enemy fire. In exactly 27 minutes, she had completely neutralized all 4 devices. Then she carefully removed the central core containing the reverse pulse battery that would have caused a devastating chain reaction explosion. As they secured the neutralized devices, a young soldier asked the question everyone was thinking. "Ma'am, why did you never come back to active duty? The military needs people with your skills." Ellie looked at him with tired eyes that had seen too much. "Because I used to save people for a living, and I also used to lose people despite my best efforts. I chose silence and anonymity because I was tired of making life and death decisions for other people." The team leader studied her classified file on his tablet. "According to our records, you're officially listed as KIA, killed in action. For 6 years, the Pentagon has believed that Echo 6 died in that failed mission with the rest of your unit. Maybe that's better for everyone involved," Ellie replied quietly. "Dead people don't have to make impossible choices anymore. Dead people don't have to carry the weight of their mistakes." But as the team packed up the neutralized explosive devices, the commanding officer handed her something unexpected. A newly printed photograph of her old unit, digitally restored and enhanced. All 6 members looked young and hopeful. "Your teammates didn't die because of any failure on your part, Sergeant Grayson. They died because someone in intelligence gave your unit completely false information about the target. The full investigation was classified for years, but it's been declassified now. You deserve to know the truth. You were never at fault." For the first time in 6 years, Ellie's steady hands began to shake uncontrollably. After the critical mission was completed successfully and all threats were neutralized, Ellie politely but firmly declined every single offer to return to active military duty, no matter how generous the terms or how desperately they claimed to need her expertise. "I've disarmed 1 set of devices today, and that's enough," she told them simply. "The rest of whatever comes next, that's your job now, not mine." She returned to her quiet little town and her simple life. The garage reopened for business as usual the very next morning, but she made one small change. She added a hand-carved wooden sign next to her front door that read, "Silence is one way to protect the people you love." From that day forward, something subtly changed in how people treated her. Veterans started bringing their vehicles to her shop specifically, even driving from other towns. Young soldiers on leave made special trips to have her work on their personal trucks. Even office workers and teachers began choosing her garage over the larger chain stores in the bigger nearby towns. Nobody haggled over her prices anymore. 3 weeks later, a young Army officer personally delivered a carefully wrapped package to her shop. Inside was the restored Shadow Unit 13 photograph, professionally framed, with a handwritten note, "For the last one standing, still protecting people from behind the steering wheel instead of behind enemy lines." Ellie hung the photograph in the corner of her break room, right next to a faded picture of her father in his Army dress uniform. He had also been a soldier. He had also served his country quietly and without recognition. He had also chosen a simple life after seeing too much combat. 3 months later, a determined teenage girl brought her broken motorcycle to the shop, struggling to push it through the front door. "Everyone at school says girls can't fix engines or understand mechanical stuff," the girl said with obvious frustration. Ellie smiled warmly and handed her a wrench. "People say a lot of things that aren't true. The loudest voices aren't always the wisest ones. Let me show you how this engine actually works." As she patiently taught the girl about compression ratios, timing belts, and the importance of precise measurements, Ellie realized something important. Her worth had never been measured by military recognition, classified missions, or official commendations. It was measured by the lives she had saved over the years, by the peace she had finally found in this small town. by the simple act of passing on knowledge to the next generation. Ellie Grayson went back to changing oil, patching tires, and fixing broken-down trucks. But now she understood something she had forgotten during her darkest years. Heroes don't always wear uniforms, carry weapons, or receive medals. Sometimes they just wear coveralls and work quietly to make the world a little bit better. Ellie Grayson will never be famous or appear on television news. She lives quietly in a small, forgotten town, fixing ordinary cars, changing regular oil, replacing worn tires, and not saying much to anyone about her extraordinary past. But when an entire team of elite Special Forces soldiers completely failed their most critical mission, they still knew exactly where to find her, because they understood that underneath those faded mechanics' coveralls and behind that modest, unassuming smile was one of the most skilled bomb disposal experts the United States military had ever trained, deployed, and trusted with impossible missions. And because she didn't need to prove her abilities to anyone, she simply demonstrated them when lives were at stake. Never underestimate another person just because they choose to live quietly and avoid attention. Because in those crucial life or death moments when everything falls apart, they might be the only reason you and your loved ones are still breathing. The most truly dangerous people are often the ones who never need to tell you how dangerous they are. Remember that important lesson the next time you're tempted to judge someone based solely on their appearance, their job, or in their lifestyle choices. The person changing your oil today might have once changed the entire world.